Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Sophia Porter, and today I will be your host, and I'm also the executive director for Black Orlando Tech. Again, I just want to thank everyone for taking out their time this evening to come and hang out with myself and Joshua Walker, our founder for Black Orlando Tech. So today we're going to be going over some cloud computing 101. But in regards to this, tonight is going to be more so like a workshop. So you're going to get to learn all of the great things about cloud computing, but Josh is also going to go through some walkthroughs with you just to show also how easy cloud computing can be. Because I know it sounds very daunting and such a big thing. It's like, oh my God, that sounds very scary. But it's truly an amazing tool to definitely learn. It can definitely be very easy to grasp. Either if you're here as a tech professional, someone who's looking to dive into tech itself and transition, or you might be a founder who is interested on how can you integrate elements of cloud computing into your tech startup enabled business. You're in the right place to learn about that. I just want to give some quick background again, just about Black Orlando Tech. If you are new here to Bot, I do also would love everyone to take a moment, if you can, down in the comments, rather if you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching, please let us know that you are here with us. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Black Orlando Tech is located in Central Florida, directly in Orlando. We have an office in downtown Orlando at Credo Condiment. If you're not aware of that workspace, that is where we are housed currently. But yeah, a lot of us are here in Central Florida. If you ever need in-person help, we are here. But yes, please go ahead in that comment section. Just let us know where you're tuning in. But yes, our bot was founded in 2016 by Joshua Walker and Mike Felix, who really had the vision and a devotion to improve the economic growth in Central Florida for underprivileged communities. So we are really here in regards to the mission of enabling and empowering as many people as possible to enter and thrive in the field of tech. Rather, that is as a tech professional, you transitioning, if that's you as a founder, you're needing help with your MVP, your pitch deck, etc. We have a lot of different offerings, programs, and services available to you. I do want to also put a disclaimer. Yes, it says Black Orlando Tech, but you don't have to be Black. We welcome everyone to join our community and be a part of the programming. We are very open to all walks of life. So if you're needing help in regards to any just like awareness, looking for activities, looking for networking opportunities, we are definitely that place for you. We are that place where we're helping you. We have a great committee, we have a great leadership and board team, and we can definitely get you connected with someone. So again, for you those that are just now joining, again, my name is Sophia Porter. I will be just like the background host, just making sure all the comments are getting in. And I'm also the executive director for Black Orlando Tech. So please put your where you're from down at the bottom. If you do have any questions along the way, please go ahead and put those down in the comment section, and we'll collect those and answer them as we go along or towards the end of the session. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to Josh. So give me a moment to get him on the stage. But again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We're so excited to have you. Take it away, Josh.
Hey, folks. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. And if you saw this session in person, you're in for a treat as, we went through a lot of the same content, but we didn't get to go through like the workshop portion. So look forward to, getting this back on the board and hopefully humanizing just cloud computing in general. And sorry for the weird camera angle. Because of one of the latest Apple updates, it basically rendered all of my webcams useless. So you get kind of this weird side view. But I think you'd be paying attention to the content more than me anyway. So I guess we can get started. This is going to be, really a crash course in cloud computing where I'm going to go through a lot of the principles of cloud computing so you're familiar, why it benefits you as a person, like far as like why you would be interested in cloud computing. But then I'm going to jump into a demo for some very practical things where I want to show you how you create a user. I want to show you how you can basically create a free website within AWS as well. So with that, we'll get started. So Safia did a great job of introducing me, but just to give a little bit more context of me as a human, I'm a senior cloud solutions architect. Been in cloud computing for a better part of 8 years now. I'm a author of the book Venti Fried Chicken, which is really just a fun and comedic autobiography and all of the game that I've learned thus far in life on how I went from at one point military, like in the military, in the army, to getting out, and at one point being homeless, and then being way less than homeless now. So thank God for that. But so if you want to pick it up, it's on Amazon and Goodreads. And then I'm also one of the co-founders of Out of Safia's said as well. And I recently, as of 2023, became an AWS community builder, just because of all of the teaching online, in person, the stuff we do here at Bot. I was able to get this handpicked distinguished designation. It's been really great. It was great to meet a lot of the other community builders all over the country at reInvent, which is AWS's annual conference in Vegas in November, and hopefully get to go there again this November. So that's a little bit more about me. And if you're looking for other content, which I also create content, independently with Bot and outside of Bot on the channel Venti Fried Chicken on YouTube and TikTok mainly. And I on TikTok is mainly like bite-sized, things to help people and just fun and chaotic stuff. So if you want to destroy your attention span with me on TikTok, feel free to join me while we have it. And for YouTube, I'm trying to do long form content and do a lot more workshop based stuff similar to what we're doing today. So I wanted to start with the success stories because I think it kind of helps everything hit home. So I myself have a success story from getting into cloud computing. My all of my degrees were in entertainment. I did two degrees at Full Sail. I was a recording arts major, graduated, and then did the bachelor's in entertainment business, or master's rather in entertainment business. But when everything was shifting and I wanted to do something else, I saw that technology was a place where I could probably, make an impact and maybe be something fun that I could get into as, just a lifelong nerd. So after, doing some like technical jobs here and there and being all self-taught, I was always looking for kind of this wave, and cloud computing was that for me. And now, I work at one of the big four firms, and, I've had a really great career, been able to see the world and impact a lot of people and clients. And, it's one of the most fulfilling things I've done in life in general, and is a job I truly do love, because with ADHD, there's no way I could do a job that I hate. So I just love cloud computing, and that's why the cloud gang is so important to me. But then outside of myself, a good example of this is another good friend of mine, Gabe Perez, who is now a solutions architect at Red Hat. And Gabe came from a similar background that wasn't a tech background, did some certifications, really put a lot of energy into projects. And now, Gabe is a solutions architect at Red Hat, which is the biggest open source, company in the world. So I say all this to say that, if you're willing to put in that sweat equity, work on some certifications, and then work on, some portfolio pieces. And we'll talk about the cohort that'll be coming up here soon for cloud computing, where, I'll be leading, me myself will be leading through an 8-week, boot camp that ends every week with a real practical project that you can put on your resume. But we are like, patient zero, if you will, of doing this. And hopefully, I don't think I particularly am special. Maybe Gabe is special, but I don't think I'm special. So we're hoping to help get a lot of people, into this field by way of, real projects. So a good question would be kind of like, why cloud? So, money talks. So the average salary is 106K, and I can tell you, it can go way up from there. But then there's also a lot of entry level jobs still. So this was a LinkedIn search, within the last few months, and I'm sure the numbers would be similar, a little bit higher now. But there's a lot of opportunity still to get into cloud computing. What a lot of people don't realize is when it comes to cloud, one of the only positives, I guess, coming out of the pandemic, which was obviously a tragedy, was that it like technology got advanced overnight because we all were stuck at home. So a lot of people's forecasts on like we're going to move to the cloud in like 4 or 5 years turned into like overnight or yesterday. So with that, it's kind of made it so a lot of cloud adoption happened sooner than later, and now there's a lot of people that need these skilled practitioners to be able to continue to grow and enhance their business with cloud computing infrastructure. So personally, why do I love cloud as a career? Very remote enabled. I know a lot of businesses have gone to hybrid. I'm hybrid-ish. I'm at home or I'm at a client usually, but there's a lot of remote work still. Everyone needs it, so I always make the analogy of, if like an application is a house, we're like the running water and electricity. So you wouldn't want to be in a mansion where you couldn't cook anything or turn on lights or you know what I mean. So that's what we are to like the tech field in a lot of ways, and is very lucrative. So as I mentioned from the base salary, but it's a very fulfilling field. I work personally within life sciences and healthcare. So I always wanted whatever I work on to benefit human in a real way. And I think, being in cloud within life sciences has been very fulfilling. So I just wanted to talk briefly about what is cloud computing. So it's really on-demand resources that you're borrowing from the tech giants, being your Amazon, Microsoft, and Google being the big three, at pay-as-you-go pricing. So I part of my origin story is how I really got into like corporate or bigger cloud, enterprise cloud, was I was helping a lot of startups, build their MVP in the cloud. And up until cloud became widely adopted, it was very hard for like a scrappy young business to keep up with any enterprise now. But now the playing field has been leveled a lot because the technology is so accessible essentially. So that's what cloud computing is. And if you want like the super abridged version, is someone else's computer, which is the running joke in IT. So you're just borrowing for basically the best tools that exist from some of the best companies that exist. So some of the benefits of cloud. So very scalable, meaning you can keep up with the demand. Another analogy I like to use all the time is like when people would go on Oprah, and this may be dating myself, but they would go on Oprah, basically people would crash their servers because so many people wanted whatever they were talking about on Oprah's couch. But now with the cloud, luckily you don't, as long as you're configured right, that wouldn't be a thing. Second thing is security. So I think there was a lot of hesitancy in the beginning of like, I don't want to move to the cloud because I don't think it's as secure as having like a data center in a room. But the reality is the cloud is like in a lot of ways a lot more secure because of the granularity that you can have with from a security standpoint. And then last but not least, disaster recovery. So in case something bad happens, like if you were in the server based situation, as an example, if like, someone knocked over a Dr. Pepper and blew up the server, you're not going to be able to wheel in another server in any reasonable time. Where if you had disaster recovery for AWS, then you could be able to at least do a cutover in a reasonable amount of time. And when you're talking at the enterprise level, those hours and minutes, that could be millions of dollars. So disaster recovery is another big reason to adopt the cloud. So I wanted to give a little history lesson because I think sometimes folks are kind of it's kind of a thing where they don't understand like the why things are the way they are, as far as like why is Amazon the biggest. So they were first to market, and they started in 2006. Azure followed suit, not too far after, and then the same with GCP. All really great cloud providers in general. And then when it comes to like the specialized services, that's where they differ a lot more. But I consider myself cloud agnostic, even as an AWS community builder. As I work with all of these in some form or fashion, with AWS being the main one I work with. So when you talk about cloud service models, there's really three ways to think about it. So you have software as a service, where you're basically saying, I want to use the service and not have to worry about anything. I just want to basically use this thing and not have to worry about any of the underlying infrastructure. Platform as a service is somewhere in between, and then infrastructure as a service is, I want all of the granular control to be able to configure. And if you guys go through the cohort, you'll see what I mean, because we'll use a little bit of everything in between with these three different types of models. Whereas like infrastructure as a service used to be the main thing. A lot of times now we're trying to use as much SaaS as possible because there's less overhead from like a human and labor standpoint. And the cloud provider is basically taking off a lot of responsibility from you, because as long as you buy into the ecosystem, they're taking care of a lot of the things you don't want to worry about, like patching and compute. So, when it comes to AWS and specifically, there's a ton of global footprint, as far as like pretty much anywhere you want to be around the world. There's data centers for AWS, and that's the best way to think about it. And the great thing about this as well is that you can do cool stuff like geolocation, as far as like, I want to make sure that the connection closest to my customers is the fastest based on where they are. But this is important. They're always adding new regions, new availability zones, so that they can service more people along the world. So just wanted to point that out. So I did want to talk about some of the foundational services, and the reason I said these are foundational is because, one, these are ones that are almost unavoidable, meaning like pretty much any project I've ever been on within cloud has used these, and they're some of the services that have been around the longest. So I believe Amazon started with Amazon S3, which one of like the OG Tech Orlando folks that is one of my mentors. He lives in another state now. I remember him doing the talk on S3, like, oh my gosh, like, because they've been around since 2006. So he was talking about this like in like 10 years ago, which is really cool. But EC2 is essentially your server-based service, no pun intended, where you're basically saying, I want, a compute box, and I want to be able to install software there. Amazon S3 is really your storage. So we say flat storage, as it's like your files, it's pictures, it's things of that nature. It's nothing that requires like any like logic, if you will. So you're like, we say flat files, it's because it's files like that. Virtual private cloud, best way to think of it is like your own private network, your slices of the internet, if you will. You decide who gets to build there, who gets to be there, and what traffic is allowed there, essentially. Route 53 is your domain service. So it's where you can buy your domain name. This is where you can do all the geo routing that I was talking about. It's where you can have like your SSL certificate and all that stuff. And then IAM is where you can create your users and your user groups. And we'll go through creating a user in this webinar, or this workshop rather. But that's where you do that. And then security and compliance, which is super important. You have guard duty, which is your really enterprise level threat detection. So this will show you like where traffic is coming from. You'll be able to explicitly, deny or allow. So if you have a certain country where your client or your business does no business there, and there shouldn't be any traffic coming from this private project that you're working on, then you could explicitly deny whole countries, or get even more granular than that. AWS config is one of my favorites, because it's essentially you can build in compliance. So where I've seen config used a lot is where you're saying, based on these type of rules, I want to be alerted, or even better yet, you're saying, based on these rules, I want to explicitly deny or remediate based on something someone would do. So if someone opened like a port that isn't supposed to be open, or even worse, like did like what we call an any rule, where essentially anyone can drive traffic to this thing, then I want to remediate based on config. So config will basically be a listener out there, and based on that rule set, will take an action. You have AWS WAF, where this is like your enterprise firewall. I think most people understand firewalls, but this is like a firewall on steroids, essentially. And then you have AWS KMS, which is your key managed service, where if you want to, have explicit like software keys for specific resources, this is the service you would use. And then going into data tools, which is important. Being in life sciences, a lot of stuff is focused on data related projects. So Amazon RDS is essentially your SQL database. So if you're like an SQL expert, this is the thing that is usually the most native for most folks. You have DynamoDB, which is your NoSQL database, so which is a whole different paradigm. And if you guys are interested in like me doing a session on just data related tools in the future, I'll be happy to do so because that's my jam. And then QuickSight, the best way to think of it is like is almost like a Tableau or Power BI, but like for Amazon's tool essentially. So, and then you have Amazon Athena, which is your interactive query service where you can use this like on top of S3 and basically do SQL queries on top of your S3 bucket. So if you had like a bunch of data that you had a clear schema for, you could basically query the S3 bucket instead of having a database, which is very cool. And then going into the AI ML tools, you have Amazon SageMaker, which is really your managed like machine learning data science tool. So there's a lot that goes into SageMaker, but I once again maybe dating myself, but for data science, being able to run workloads used to be a real hassle because you needed a really strong computer, and then there was a ton of configuration that went into it. Amazon SageMaker essentially makes it so you get a lot of what you want out of the box, or at least a small amount of configuration. So definitely check out SageMaker if you're looking to get into AI ML. Amazon Recognition is a really awesome service as well. This is basically, you'll be able to look at pictures, and I've seen a lot of cool use cases with this, like scanning things like x-rays and stuff that, are some public use cases that you'll see on like Amazon site and other public sources. Amazon Alexa is their voice service. So think like Alexa, which I think is why it's like a shorter version of Alexa, but all voice and text-based applications. And then you have Amazon Polly, which is really your text-to-speech. So go in the reverse of that. So I did want to talk about serverless because this is also another big concept and something we would cover in the cohorts as well because it's so important. So we talked about SaaS, but serverless kind of takes this up, even ramps it up even more. Where you have API gateway, whereas if you've ever built an API yourself, you know how painful that can be in far as like managing it. So API gateway is like the SaaS tool where you can have a scalable API that you can use to basically communicate from service to service externally from Amazon or internally. And then AWS Lambda is essentially, and I put Rick and Morty here because I think it's a good analogy, is if like using a server was driving a car, AWS Lambda would be if you could teleport as far as compute goes. So it's saying, I just want to run my code, whatever that takes to run that code, that's what I want you to use, but I don't want to have to worry about it, essentially. So I did want to talk about some of the careers. Hopefully we have some Snowfall fans. One of my favorite characters of all time with Franklin Saint. So you have the solutions architect, think big picture thinker. And you usually evolve to solutions architect. So I started as a DevOps engineer, which is, the nerd guy from the Matrix that basically made sure everyone was patched everywhere, which is kind of ironic. But then you kind of evolve to a solutions architect over time. You do a bunch of projects. You learn a bunch of lessons. So solutions architect is like the big thinker, where DevOps engineer might be more focused on a specific problem in the bigger picture. And then I put cloud security here because with the adoption of the cloud, we're needing more and more practitioners that understand what it means to be secure. And then, in my space, as far as like enterprise, and then definitely life sciences, or just in any security is not a nice to have, just in general, just because of all of the information that is put into any app of any size. So these are all great careers, but all different paths as far as like what you need to know and like the lifestyle as well. So resources to get started, I'll give a free one, and then I'll give one that's paid, but also a good like one I recommend. I've used myself, and I've used both of these for different reasons. But Free Code Camp, if you type Free Code Camp on YouTube and AWS or GCP or Azure, they have a ton of free courses for you to get certified, or for you to just learn some really cool stuff as far as like a very specific use case. And then the Cloud Guru is a paid service, which I got the privilege of like being interviewed by them at reInvent, but they're not paying me to say this. They're just a really good service. But they have very curated paths for a Cloud Guru, where if you wanted to go to zero to solutions architect by way of certifications and hands-on projects, they have like more than pretty much anyone else. I think they recently merged with Pluralsight, which is actually a good thing, because I think the gray area of DevOps now, or just cloud in general, is that software development and cloud development are in a lot of ways are overlapping a lot. So I think it's a good strategic move. Far as certificates, far as AWS certs, and you'll hear that lingo a lot, certs. Um, if you're new to cloud, the cloud practitioner exam is what our cohort will be based on, just because we wanted to start foundationally and then move on. But I'm going to look to add some, the hands-on part will be more in the realm of solution architect associate. But if you're new to cloud, I would start with the cloud practitioner. To be transparent, as I always am on any of my platforms, the cloud practitioner usually isn't going to get you a job, but it is going to get you in the game. And I think with the bulk of getting hired is the real world project. But then if you have some tech experience, where I was like a general programmer for a few years, I started with the solution architect associate, and I did the DevOps associate right after. But the cloud practitioner actually didn't exist when I got in the cloud, which is making me really feel like an old man, but nonetheless. Um, so now I wanted to jump into a demo. So I'm going to switch really quick. And let me check comments. And I want to make sure I have time for QA at the end. So bear with me really quick. I think. Thanks, Safia. So to get started, I felt like I wanted to make sure this was a workshop as well, because I think I meet so many people that get excited about the cloud, and then they do this weird thing where they just never log in. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw the dashboards and the resources, and do some stuff to really hopefully make it so that either if you already have your account and you're following along, or you watch this back afterwards and go through it, I encourage you to sign up for an AWS account, as it's free. It doesn't charge you anything to sign up, and they have a really huge free tier. So one thing I did want to show you guys as you work on it more, and I would usually have more icons here, but this is pretty much a fresh account. If you look up here, you can basically add your favorites. So if I was looking up, like, let me see what's not up here. Let's say Poly. Basically, you could basically star these, and so you have your favorites, so you don't have to always type in the service. So it's one of those weird little gotchas that I just wanted to talk about. Next, I wanted to just create a user. So right now I'm logged in as what they call root. So that's like basically God mode. But you shouldn't really be using root for like on a day-to-day basis. So I wanted to start properly. And I did have like some users, but I'm going to create one from scratch just to show you guys what I mean, and then show you kind of what the process looks like. So I'll just put JW Tech Dev, and bear with me with, live coding can be really, or live typing in general can be nerve wracking. Um, so basically, this is going to send me an email, and I'll just send it to my email. And you guys feel free to email me after this. Tech.org. Oh, sorry, fat fingering right now. Hopefully it'll email me very quickly. So one thing I did before, because I wanted to make sure I made the best use of time. I did create a group before, and all you would do is you would go to groups, and you would basically assign a group a set of permissions. So I just made the Venti Power users, just so I could add a user. And so this should be emailing me now. And let me go to so give me a second. And I realize I think I need to share another tab. Actually, I will share another tab. Sorry. Stop screen. All right. So it's asking me to type in a new password. So I'm going to add that there. Well, that's awkward. Password doesn't match. All right. So I set a new password. And if you're using like LastPass or something, keep in mind that this is username, not your email. Because I'll have people email me and say they can't get in, and it's because they're using their email and not their. So this is the great thing about this too, is using the identity center. Like before, essentially the person would have to essentially decide to do the right thing when it came to MFA, but now they've made it through the identity center where you have to basically do some type of authentication. So you won't see it on screen, but I'm going to pick the Authenticator app, which is just a Microsoft product, and I am going to, you'll see this QR code here, and don't worry, I'm going to delete this user and all that. So second. Sorry about that. This is taking, I don't know if it's resolution. But essentially, they put a QR code up, and you have to add it into your Authenticator app. I don't know why, just having issues with. Of course, this happens live. Had no issues when it was me by myself. 1 second. Let me turn my brightness up. All right, this is making me feel like an old man because it's not. I don't know why phone-wise it's not working, but all right. Let me enter Authenticator code. 1 second. So I'm actually gonna go back because I don't want to waste you guys' time. But essentially, you would set up the Authenticator, and is basically like how you use any menu, essentially when you're using a QR code. So let me present my screen again. All right. So yeah, you would set up your user, and so essentially, anytime you signed in, you would have to provide that Authenticator code, and it's like a rolling. And maybe I could show you guys and make sure I don't have anything That's two. Yeah, I can click into it. So it would look something like this where it'll have, and I put my GitHub because this GitHub is dead, but it has this rolling out MFA code where essentially it would be almost impossible to get hacked because this code is, basically being refreshed on an ongoing basis and you have to give it every time you log in. So with that, having that user, another thing I wanted to show you guys, because there's no takebacks when it comes to AWS, and you'll kind of maybe get a laugh from this when it comes to billing. But I was doing some development for bot for we're basically creating our own version of Chat GPT using their service Amazon Q. So if you guys are interested in what that looks like at the end, I'm supposed to be demoing this, at Tiffany Spencer's conference, Dreaming in Color in New Orleans in the summer. So look forward to doing that. But essentially, I'm going to show you going into the billing cost management, how to create a billing alarm, because it's good to know, like what is to set a budget with costs. Um, and let's see. So if you go to budgets, and you see Cloud Gang is broke, and you see I've grossly exceeded the forecast I had, where I had budgeted $10, but I wanted to show a brand new one. So the cool thing is, which they didn't have before, is that you can set a zero spend budget. So if I spend anything more than a penny, then, or if I spend a penny and up, notify me. But what I had was like a monthly budget, where you basically can set like a dollar amount. So I just wanted to show you guys what that looked like. And then there's other budgets where if you have like a daily savings plan, which is a little bit more complex, or you're using reserve instances, which is basically saying, um, and I'll give you the scenario on reserve instances is like, I've been working on this project for a year. I looked at all of like the compute and utilization, and basically it's been steady state for over 6 months. Now that's when I could go and work with my leadership, maybe your client, if you're doing it on their behalf, and say, hey, how we can save money is if we basically lock in this utilization for. So that's all reserve instances are. But I recommend, as soon as you get into an AWS account, make sure you set these alarms as soon as possible. And then kind of a life hack, as I said, if you're really tight on budget and you're super worried and paranoid, you could do like a gift card or something like that, like an Amex gift card or an American Express gift card, so that it's something that like it's a hard stop. Like if this gets spent, then I'm done. And then there's a lot of ways for you to get AWS credits as well. AWS is really great at one free tier, but then also making sure that you try things out. So as a community builder, I got a decent amount of credits, but as just a regular user, there's a bunch of ways for you to apply for credits. Maybe that's something I could post like a link for that, because it's pretty easy to find ways to apply for credits for AWS. So with the billing alarm, I did want to set up show you how to set up a website within AWS. So the cool thing about it is you can use the S3 service to basically set up a HTML, CSS, JavaScript based website. So this wouldn't be like something like a WordPress or something that requires like a full database and logic, or a programming language that requires like complex logic. But it's a good thing for most people that want to just have a free and scalable website. And this will be honestly one of the projects that would be in the cohort, as far as something, because I think it basically doubles as a portfolio piece, but then it's also like showing your skills. So something you put on your resume, but it also can act as like, where you showcase a lot of your skills. So we'll jump into that now. So I'm going to the S3 service. And just because, and you'll see, I was doing some demo stuff, and I was like playing around with my wife's, like if we would have made her portfolio, but It's just more for show. So I'll do a brand new one. So we'll just say, hopefully amazing site at bot. Hopefully that bucket name isn't taken. And this is one of the few times where you don't want to block all public access. So this is one of the few use cases where you want a public bucket, but there's no way for anyone to be able to see the website if it's not public. So, and as you can see, AWS does a good job of like showing you that, are you sure that you want to uncheck this box? Because you don't want to be on CNN. So, but in this use case, we're going to say yes. And if you wanted to do bucketing, versioning is basically like it's a good way of helping like for redundancy. So, if your site got compromised or you have some issue happen with your site, versioning will just basically anytime, because you can tie this to basically using code commit and maintain your site locally and like deploy to this S3 bucket essentially. So you would want different versions of it in case you needed to roll back or something essentially. So we still are going to use encryption. We'll use server-side encryption, and we're going to create the bucket. See how easy that is to create the bucket, but there's still a lot more configuration to do. So we'll jump into that. So let's see, we're going to go on amazing site at bot. We're going to go into properties. And we are going to edit, where is it? Oh, so we're going to edit, or we're going to enable static website hosting. So, this is part of the service. This isn't like something that I duct tape together. This is like totally intentional from AWS, if you're keeping track. So it'll just be index.html, which is the standard, like usually convention for, but this could be, venti fried chicken.html, but we're just going to stick with index for simplicity, because I know there's a lot of basically a lot of developers that make their their HTML file a weird name just for personal style, but yeah, I'll keep it vanilla with index. And then let me look at my notes, make sure I'm missing any steps. So then we're also going to go into our permissions tab. So we already blocked all public access. We unchecked blocking all public access, but we're also going to have to add a bucket policy for us to be able to see this. And the good thing is AWS gives you the code you need right out the box. It's like one Google search away. But before I do that, just so I don't mess up the thunder of trying to hit a URL with nothing in it, we're going to actually upload our files. So yours would be an actual website, of some kind, where mine is going to be just me grabbing, some random code on the internet and hoping that it's not something that gives like, my computer the plague. But let me see, where did I put it? Of course. One second. Let me grab it off screen. And we're going to add these files. All right, so we have succeeded. All right. So we're going to close that there. So we have all of our files, and the reason I used index.html is because this is going to be like the root file, if you will. Like based on this file hierarchy, index will basically be the thing that curates everything and pulls in all of the styles for the CSS, which what makes things pretty, and then all of the different pages that we could customize. But this is something I haven't customized at all. This was just mainly for this this demo. So we'll go to permissions. we'll go to bucket policies, we'll hit edit, and this is code that I got from Amazon directly. And we're going to need to change it to our bucket name. So don't forget that part. So this was amazing. Amazing site at bot. I should have used camel. I should have used some hyphens. Okay, let's see if this works. All right, we saved that. And then now we're going to go back to our properties, and there is a URL at the bottom. And if everything went well, this will actually work. And voila. So this is how you would launch a website essentially on Amazon S3. Like I said, I didn't code any of this, beautiful template. I literally just stole it off the internet and uploaded it. But you could use AWS's, code editor to basically customize this and make this your own and replace the images and all that. And I forget what site I got this from, but this mainly just proves the point of, and this would be essentially a free website that you wouldn't have to worry about traffic and all that stuff. And then if you wanted to get really fancy, which most of you would, and we will do this in the cohort, is you could tie this to a URL. Obviously, you could throw this, this URL on like your resume, but it probably wouldn't be as, as visually pleasing as, whatever your name is .com. So I think that's mainly what I wanted to show for the demo. Hopefully this really humanizes AWS in general. And you saw like this, I hope this really instills that I did all this, and I wasn't a code editor. I was all within what we call the console, and was able to, deploy some services, do some normal job functions that you would actually do. So, yeah, I think with that, Safia, I think we could jump into Q&A, because I wanted to make sure we had time for that.
All right, sounds good. So if anyone have any questions they would like to ask Josh, now is the time to ask. I'm going to go through. I know there was a couple of inquiries about things, but I feel like you may have seen them already and was kind of like already going over it.
Yeah,
But
I'm looking
if you
now
feel like
too.
your answer wasn't too clear, just please let us know. I think someone's asking here, if you haven't purchased a domain, would it be a default to the Amazon site?
It's basically the same registrar as like if you did like Namecheap or one of the other ones. Like basically, as long as the domain is available, you could buy it there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. And then we have Daniel. Could you show us the website again? Only AWS was showing.
Oh, for like where did I go to sign up?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, all right. Let me grab it. One second. I think I can paste in the chat. Or I could just can't paste in the chat for some reason, but it's aws.amazon.com.
All right. Next question from earlier. Can you mention a few ways to get credit after?
Yes. So I think the easiest way would be to look at the AWS Activate program. Essentially, and it's aws.amazon.com/startups/credits. But like you'll look at it and it'll say like activate for founders and stuff, but the criteria for getting credits is usually pretty low. Far as like meaning they want folks to tinker around and possibly come up with a good idea to use AWS. So if you just do a quick Google search of AWS Activate or AWS Activate credits, that'll be a good way to find credits.
Okay. And I'm going to go one more back from earlier. But I think this is a good question. Like, does it cost to create an account for learning purposes?
No, it doesn't cost to create an account. So the account is completely free. And you can look into free tier, and then there are some services that charge. But like I said, if you set up the billing alarms, then you pretty much save yourself from from paying anything.
Okay, so I have a few more at the bottom. Let's see here. No, I have my cloud practitioner and AWS solution architect. Do you recommend any products that can make you stand out?
Yeah, I know that we're all hearing about AI and ML ad nauseum, I mean, but for good reason. But I think like projects based in SageMaker, things that aren't going away are like automation projects. So the two automation frameworks that are most widely used, AWS has CloudFormation, which is a thing that everyone uses, but there's also what we call like cloud agnostic automation, which is Terraform and Ansible. So those are also ones that are heavily needed. Essentially, when you get to a certain level, or I guess really any level, you want like repeatable infrastructure. So automation is will always be a big deal, just because if something goes down, can I deploy a new one? If I want to copy and paste and and iterate on something, or make a derivative of something, you don't want to do that manually. You want to be able to just deploy a template essentially. Hopefully that answers the question.
Next question we have here: could you build things like CDNs using services like this, or what the ideal products one could build?
Yeah, and AWS already has a CDN service that you can customize. So yeah, you definitely can.
Okay. When you launched a website, it only shared the screen of the AWS, not what the website looked like.
Let me see. Oh, okay. Well, the for AWS, like the website for AWS is mainly documentation. So I really wanted to just show like the actual, like, if you were a cloud practitioner, what I showed you today is what you would see. We don't You usually only use documentation if you're like you're trying to build something specific. And actually, can I show them one more thing, Safia?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna go through there. Here's another question for Cassandra. Yes, this is actually being recorded on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, which they'll actually stay on each platform. But we will also be sending out email recaps.
yeah.
All right.
So a cool service that has launched recently. I talked about Amazon Q, but I was talking about the custom version of it. But essentially, AWS has like their version of Chat GPT. So like if you were like an entry level cloud practitioner and you had like a question on like how do I create a static website in S3, like the example I showed, you can just basically type it in here and it's basically part of the console now. So I just wanted to show that as you have your free account, if you're like curious on like what it can build, or what AWS has, this is a good way to go down the rabbit hole, but in a focused way by asking Amazon Q the questions. So I'll stop so I can share more or answer questions.
And we have one more question. You guys, if you have questions, please put them down. We are online for another 5 minutes. So, what is the best cybersecurity certificate for a person in the web director development design field?
I would say AWS's cybersecurity certification. It's one of the harder certifications, but not that many people have it. If you want to go broader than that, of course, there's like the certs from CompTIA. But when it comes to cloud computing, and I've worked with CompTIA as well, they're great people, a lot of great content. But when it comes to like the job market, most people are looking for very specific people. So I want an AWS cybersecurity architect, or I want an Azure cybersecurity. So I will look at basically the security certs for the vendor versus like a more broad certification, if that makes any sense.
Perfect. Okay. So the next question we have is, do we have a cohort coming up? And we actually do.
Yes.
I'm going to see if I can put the link directly in the comments. Um, I'm going to give me LinkedIn a moment. I have to go manually put it into the comments. But we do have a cohort coming up. But I'll let Josh go in on that.
Yeah. So actually, I think I have a slide on this where I can show you guys what you would actually be going through. Let me share my screen real quick. So yes, the cohort is coming up, and I'll be teaching it, so there won't be any stranger danger, hopefully. But there, essentially, it'll be 8 weeks, and it ends with a bot build after every 1 to 2 weeks. So, this is like basically homework that you can use to put in your resume. So we're going to be, talking about what are the real life examples, because a lot of times when you're talking to clients or people that want to leverage it, whether it's internally, the something you'll hear a lot is what's the use case. So you're going to need to be able to eloquently say like, why should we build this? Then we're going to get into like the fun stuff of like we're going to create users, we're going to create groups, we're going to make sure that we do least privileged access, meaning like if right now how I did the groups, I was an admin because I'm the only person in this account, but usually how it is like the database admin will only have access to RDS and the other no SQL database or what have you. Like based on your job function, these are what you should be able to do. And then weeks 5 and 6, we're going to look to deploy like a server, and put some software in there, do some patching, just like stuff that I know that we actually do in the wild. And then same thing for S3, launching that website. And then I'm going to take it a step further for S3, where we're actually going to, if you guys have the, like, and maybe we could figure out the logistics of it, but if you want to buy your domain through Route 53, which is their registrar, and then, we'll set up like the SSL certificate, all that stuff. And then we'll round it out with doing some architecture diagrams. So I think a lot of times for solution architecture, a lot of before you can build stuff, you have to have people buy into an idea and challenge ideas. So we basically want to end the cohort on like, let's build a full AWS architecture from start to finish and be able to eloquently explain why we made those design decisions, and be able to explain it in an interview. So this is what the cohort will be. It'll be based on like, it won't be any fluff as far as the projects. It'll be based on, if I was looking at your resume, which I help with a lot of hiring, would I hire you? So hopefully that answers the question.
We have 2 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up
Okay,
this.
cool.
So let's just answer these real quickly. What are your thoughts on solution architects with less than 2 years experience?
I personally, I wouldn't consider someone with 2 years or less a solution architect. I would probably consider them like a solutions engineer or DevOps engineer. But I don't think there's any issue with it. So to give you my personal example, just so you know, I'm being real about it, is I was working with startups. I essentially was helping startups like for free, and they were just paying me in AWS credits just so I can get like my weight up, if you will. And then I was speaking at like a local tech meetup, and the employer that I work with now was in the crowd and was like, hey, you really know what you're talking about. We're standing up this new center nearby, for cloud engineering. Would you be interested in applying? So I think it's what I try to stress is less about years and more about how much skin in the game do you have. I think a lot of people basically spend too much energy into the cert. So the cert is good because it gives a base knowledge, but that hands-on time is, you can't beat it, and that's really the gauge of if you're going to be successful in the job or not. And I think there's one more question. Hopefully that answers the question, Balrog.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend those building in Web3 and using blockchain technology start learning or leaning towards cloud computing?
Yes, AWS and the other vendors as well have blockchain services as well, so they see the writing on the wall as well. There's the blockchain is unavoidable, even if it kind of took a slump with like the crypto winter and stuff, but they have services for it, and I've been on blockchain cloud projects as well, so you definitely should check it out, Jehu.
All right, perfect. Well, everyone, thank you so much. That is going to be a wrap for our live stream today. So thank you everyone for joining. I did post in each of the platforms a link. So if you're interested in the cloud computing, just put your name and your email down, and we'll be sending around a more formal application in the next couple weeks for you to join our cohort at, I think, at the top of May, is where we're looking to launch. So we're
Yep.
very excited for it. So yes, if you're excited as well, want to join, be a part of it, please put your name down, so we can be in contact with you. I do also want to just point out as well, if you are in the Central Florida area, especially in Orlando, we do have another upcoming in-person presentation. Let me just pull that up real quick just to show everyone. And I had it up and then I disappeared. One moment. But just so you know about our events in general, we are trying to have 2 events per month. One in person, just like this, where it's like a workshop for you to learn about a new technical skill set. And then another one that will be in person. Both events are always going to be on Thursdays at night. Our in person event are in downtown Orlando at our office in downtown Credo, which is starting from 6:30 to 9 o'clock, and then online is from 7 to about 8 o'clock. We're wrapping that up. But just to show you, you can go to search on Eventbrite for Black Orlando Tech, where you'll find all of our upcoming events. And I just want to show you the next one that is coming up here. Just a moment. Put that on us. Here you go. Well, your guys are already at this one, so hold on. Here we go. We have Lovable Influence and Innovation, that is coming up next. And this is what the advertising look like. It's going to be on April 25th. We open doors at 6:30. Programming starts at 7. Technically wrapping up more so at by 8:30, 9 o'clock. And this is
Yeah.
going to be with one of our committee leads, David Yardy. And he has just a really great presentation just in regards to how you can elevate your leadership, really do some really deep discovering and impact within your career, especially if you're someone as a professional who's just looking to transition or just wanting to figure out different ways, to better yourself, in
Yeah.
the workforce.
And I can't say David's praises enough. So David's like one of the like super duper tech OGs in the area, and he was like one of the first people that really I embraced, in our scene, and I'm glad he's part of our team now. And David's also like he's one of the founders of the biggest UX groups here as well. So look forward to that talk. So can't say enough good things about David.
Yes, and I'll also put that in the chat down below, for everyone to get just direct access. And I think that's really a wrap. But yes, thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, about bot tech in general, please come and reach out to us. We have someone with our circle who we can get you connected with. And just also, if you're ever interested in joining a nonprofit, volunteering, donating some hours, we are always looking for new committee leaders, or just people to help with our events, throughout the year. And yes, we do provide food at all of our in person events, and they're great food. We don't slack on food. So if you like to eat, you love where free food is, come hang out with us Thursday night. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great night, and thank you again. And yes, we will be emailing out the presentation links, along with the survey, just to get your feedback on how you felt about tonight, and how we can continue to improve this process in the future.
You guys are now part of the Cloud Gang, so congrats. You just got jumped in officially. So,
All right, guys. Have a great night.
all right. Bye, everyone.